Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Hey Wait podcast. I am so glad you're here. I'm Jay Moonfields, and this podcast is all about helping you stay solid in yourself so you can have the kind of life and relationships that you've always wanted but haven't quite figured out how to get yet. Because here's the deal. Most of us were never taught how to manage our emotions, regulate our nervous systems, or navigate tough conversations. And so we don't know how to show up fully as ourselves, especially when we're around other people. And I absolutely count myself in this. I was raised by good people and I went to good schools, and I still grew into an adult who had no idea how to stay true to myself when I was around other people. And after 25 years as a somatic educator and coach, working with thousands of people who are smart and caring all over the world, I can tell you this. It is incredibly common to be a professional success and a relational mess, or to have a life that looks amazing from the outside but doesn't feel that way on the inside. And that's where Hey Wait comes in, both the tool and the podcast. Because Hey Wait is a simple but powerful tool to pause, check in, and realign your insides with your outsides. And I've seen from experience that learning to do this is life-changing. But I also think on a large enough scale, it can be world-changing, because I don't just want you to have a better experience of yourself. I want the entire relational fabric of our world to be woven more tightly and with more integrity than it is right now. You with me on that? To do that, we're going to need skills that are backed by science, and we're going to need stories that show us it's possible, which brings me back to this podcast. Each week, I'm going to be here with you to share stories and insights and interviews and practical tools to help you shift how you show up in your relationships and in your life. And I have got some really great guests lined up that I can't wait to introduce you to. But for these first 2 episodes, it's just going to be me and you. Because before we go any further, I want to introduce myself. And more importantly, I want to introduce Hey Wait, this tool that can change everything for you. So in this first episode, I'm going to share the origin story of Hey Wait, because it's not just my story and the story of Hey Wait, it's a teaching story. And if it hits you the way it hit me the first time I heard it, you're going to want to listen up. So, what is Hey Wait? It is a way of interrupting your pattern of losing yourself when you're around other people. Because I know that you have walked away from many a conversation ruminating on what you wished you'd said instead, or on what you wish you had said at all, because what you actually did was freeze up and stay quiet, or go along to get along with something that you knew didn't feel right in your bones. So Hey Wait is the tool that you can reach for in those moments when you feel like you're about to slip back into old patterns, like rushing to over-explain or over-apologize, or agreeing to keep the peace, or saying yes so that someone will like you, or when you feel like you might blow your lid and say or scream something you regret because you have done altogether too much therapy and you know better than to do that. Hey Wait are the 2 words that buy you just that little extra beat so you can come back to yourself and figure out what you actually want to say that's honest and healthy and grounded and even grown up. Imagine that. And let me be clear, this is not something that I always knew how to do. In fact, I used to be absolutely terrible at being true to myself around other people. And it is the entire reason why I do the work that I do. Because I spent years either being a hermit and living alone so I could have some inner peace, or taking on responsibility for other people's emotions and trying to make sure everyone liked me, while also subtly, or probably not so subtly, trying to mold and change the people around me into being who I wanted them to be. And spoiler alert, this didn't go well for me. And the most embarrassing part of it all is that I was even still doing this while I was making big girl money, coaching other people to be true to themselves. And I could help other people, and I could even do it for myself in certain circumstances. But I was seriously stuck in some unhealthy shit in some of my relationships. And I knew a whole hell of a lot about how to be present and how to regulate my emotions and my nervous system, but it somehow wasn't translating into me having a better experience of myself in the relationships that mattered the most to me. And I had this sense that there had to be someone out there who could see what I couldn't see and could help me out of these bad patterns that I was in. Or at least I really hoped there was, because I felt like I was doing all I knew how to do and it wasn't working. And it freaked me out because I felt like if I can't figure this out, I'm not ever going to have a romantic relationship that I want. And my relationships in general are always going to feel kind of like a burden. Well, enter Nancy Dreyfus, who was the fairy godmother / Yoda I had been wishing for. Nancy Dreyfus is a brilliant therapist and the author of the book, Talk to Me Like I'm Someone You Love, which honestly, do yourself a favor and buy a copy if you don't have one. In our first couple of sessions, Nancy helped me to see this pernicious internal unconscious template that I had that was undermining my behavior despite me consciously knowing better. So I want to share with you that teaching Nancy gave me, because this is the origin story of Hey Wait. And for those of you who feel like you know better than to be feeling and acting the way you are in your relationships, may this story illuminate for you, like it did for me, why this is happening. Okay, so here's the teaching. Imagine there's a little girl who's about 5 years old, and she's intently playing with her blocks on the floor in her bedroom. And Mommy A comes into her room and says, "We've got to take your grandma to her doctor's appointment." And the little girl says, "I don't want to go." And the mom says, "We have to." And then she reaches down and she gently grabs the girl by her hand and pulls her away from her blocks. Okay, so now imagine same scenario, little girl intently playing with her blocks. And this time, Mommy B comes into her room and says, "Wow, look at what you've built here. Oh my gosh." And she points out the tower and the cool archway and all the things the little girl has made. And then Mommy B says, "I hate to do this, but we have to take your grandma to the doctor." And the little girl says, "But I don't want to." And Mommy B says, "Why would you? Playing with your blocks is definitely more fun. But we do have to go. But when we come back, you can come back to playing with your blocks." Okay, so I'm going to pause here and I want to ask you to consider what the difference is between Mommy A and Mommy B in these scenarios. And a lot of people will say things like Mommy A was more efficient and Mommy B was more kind and patient, which is true. And for all of you moms and dads out there, side note, I'm sure you can totally understand how in most moments in the middle of the hectic days of your life, it's a lot easier to be Mommy A than Mommy B. But here's the real distinction that I want you to get between Mommy A and Mommy B. Mommy A acted like there was only one reality, hers, and she didn't acknowledge anything about the little girl's world or her experience. But Mommy B took a moment to acknowledge what the little girl was doing before she said that they needed to go. And then when the little girl said she didn't want to go, Mommy B didn't try to talk her out of her feelings or say that her feelings were wrong or bad. She validated them. Of course you don't want to go. Why would you? And this is key because Mommy B is modeling to the little girl that they both have realities and experiences and feelings that are real and valid. But that in this particular case, Mommy B's reality is the one that they have to respond to because it's important they get grandma to the doctor's appointment. But that doesn't mean that the little girl doesn't still have a reality of her own or that it's not important. So here's the deal. Most of us had mommy A's in our lives growing up. And that isn't to say we had selfish, uncaring caregivers. It's to say we had caregivers who were doing their best, but who were often busy or tired or emotionally triggered, or who had never been taught by their own caregivers or by anyone how to model that there isn't just one reality that we're all fighting for. But the crappy thing about this, my friends, is if it happens enough times that the people who care for you don't seem to acknowledge your reality and instead repeatedly enforce that you go along with theirs, you're going to start to think that your reality doesn't matter, especially when other people are around, that your feelings and your experiences and your opinions have to be suppressed. And you get it in your bones that there's only one reality, and it's usually the other person's. So your options are either to comply with it or defy it. And complying looks like people-pleasing and going along to get along and ignoring or suppressing your own feelings and needs. And defying is you feeling like you have to make it a fight anytime you want to express your opinion or set a boundary. You feeling me? Is this making sense? I'm telling you, when Nancy first took me through this, I was floored. It finally explained to me why it felt like I disappeared when I was around other people, because I'd been trained to believe that there's only one reality and it's never really going to be mine unless I'm alone. And that I acted the way I did because this felt so true in every cell of my body, except it was based on an entirely false premise. Because I had a reality too, and it didn't disappear when other people were around. I'd just forgotten how to attend to it and be a stand for it. So then Nancy brought it home by saying, I want you to imagine there's a third scenario. Mommy A comes into the room and tells the little girl they have to go get grandma, and the little girl says, hey, wait, look at what I'm doing here. The little girl says, hey, wait, I have a reality too. She's not complying or defying her mom's reality. She's stating her own. So here's the thing. You used to be able to do this, and I used to be able to do this. But at some point, a very long time ago, we stopped saying, hey, wait. And the day we stopped saying, hey, wait, is the day we started feeling shame for wanting to be related to. And I'm going to say that again. When you stop saying, hey, wait, I have a reality too. It is the day that you start thinking there's something wrong with you for wanting someone else to consider you and your reality. Does that hit you the way it hit me? Because I heard that and I thought, oh my God, that's my problem. I stopped expecting that someone else would care about my experience. And I started feeling bad for wanting it and mad for not getting it. And a mixture of fired up and depressed, thinking I might never figure out how to get someone else to consider my reality, which meant I was never going to feel truly happy around other people. But I thought about it and I realized that if all of that started on the day I stopped being able to say, hey, wait, I'd just start saying it again and see what happened. So a few days after Nancy gave me this brilliant teaching, I was at my then boyfriend's house hanging out, and it was a Sunday morning. And let me just say, I loved this person. And I knew that it wasn't a healthy relationship because I could see he was a very loving guy under the layers of trauma that he hadn't processed yet. And I'd been putting up with a lot of shit because I thought I could help him heal. And again, spoiler alert, that wasn't going so well for me. So that morning, he had made a comment about how flabby my arms were, and that he worried if that's what they looked like when I was in my late 30s, what were they going to look like when I was in my 50s and beyond? Yeah, that's right. I was disgusted and shocked and speechless. And everything went kind of fuzzy, and I felt like time slowed down, and I had no idea what to say. And then it dawned on me, and I said, hey, wait. I'm going to give you the opportunity to think through what you just said to me and to make a genuine apology to me. And if you're unwilling or you can't, I'm going to go home. I was so proud of myself. That moment felt like a win because I hadn't allowed for his body shaming, misogynistic comment, and I also hadn't retaliated with something equally awful. I had been considerate of myself and of him, and I had asked him to be considerate of me. And hell if he didn't take a couple breaths and then give me an incredibly heartfelt apology that included him saying that he'd been feeling self-conscious about his body recently, and he'd been being really mean to himself about his own fitness level, and that he knew that comment was just him taking that out on me. It was a rare and powerful moment of real connection between us. And that moment changed the way I saw myself in relationships, because I realized that the experience of myself that I wanted around others didn't come from having the perfect words to say. It came from having the courage to pause and say two simple words. Hey, wait. Words that showed I was considering myself and choosing to believe that he would too if I gave him the chance. And hey, wait became my way of proving to myself that I mattered and inviting others to see that too. And I started using it all the freaking time. And a few weeks later, I actually broke up with that boyfriend because once I started asking to be considered, I could see and feel just how much heavy lifting I'd been doing in that relationship. And I decided that I would rather just be with someone who considered me by default. And the very next guy I dated, no shit, is now my husband, Mr. Moon. Because from day one, he showed me that he knew how to consider me. So thank you to you, Nancy Dreyfus, for seeing what I couldn't see and for so much more. And amen for the tool of Hey Wait, because it really is what changed everything for me. I hope that you are feeling all fired up to use Hey Wait to reclaim your sense of mattering too, because your reality does matter, and not just when you're alone. So if you're excited about Hey Wait, but you're also thinking, okay, cool, Jay, but how do I actually do this? I got you. Because I'm going to walk you through the 3 steps to help you use Hey Wait, especially if you struggle to value yourself or to say what's true for you. So step 1 is notice when you're having a bad experience of yourself. Like maybe someone's made a request of you that you don't want to do, but you're scared to say no to. Or maybe your narcissistic brother just made a crude comment that made your stomach turn. Or maybe you feel misunderstood at work. Or maybe your emotions are running high and you don't know what to say. Whatever is happening, it's something that makes you feel kind of sped up inside and frantic, or foggy and frozen. And this is the influence of your nervous system. And in future podcasts, we're going to talk about what to do with your nervous system so that you cannot be hijacked by it in moments like this. But when you feel those sensations in your body, I want you to recognize that this is you not having a good experience of yourself, and that you're probably about to say or do something that's out of an old habit that no longer serves you. I had a client once who always said yes to things she didn't want to do and then resented it later. And one day she was at work and she was already overwhelmed, and her boss came in and asked her if she could take on one more thing. And she said that she felt this rush of heat in her body and energy inside. And she said it was like her body was saying, oh, hell no, I can't do one more thing. But in almost the same instant, an internal voice came in and said, but you can't say no. And she was sure that she was about to have her automatic no problem come out of her mouth. Any of this sounding familiar? So this is what it's like to not have a good experience of yourself. You feel hot, you feel trapped, you feel pissed, you feel resigned, you feel beholden. And all of that happens so fast. So the first step is just to notice that it's happening. When you feel sped up or frozen or emotionally triggered around someone, pause, because that feeling is a sign you're about to react out of a habit. So take a breath and give yourself a moment so you can choose a different way forward. Which takes us to step 2. Give yourself permission to pause. Once you notice you're about to fall into an old habit, the next step is giving yourself permission to take a beat. This is where you say, hey, wait, to yourself. As in, hey, wait, I'm not having a good experience in myself right here. I'm about to perpetuate my habit of defying or complying with someone else's reality. So this is where you ask yourself, what's my reality right now? What's true for me? And the other person might keep on talking. And hell, you might even keep right on talking while you're thinking in your own head, what am I doing? What's going on for me? What do I need? And that's totally okay, because you don't have to shift or respond right away. That's the beauty of the words, hey, wait. They're like calling a time out and giving yourself a moment before you're ready to step forward with whatever you're going to do next. So take the time you need to feel what's true for you. For example, I have a client who's gotten into a bad habit in her relationship with her husband. There's so much unspoken between them, so many repressed emotions, so many unsaid truths, that any time her husband walks into the room, she finds herself shutting down inside. So I told my client, instead of trying to ignore that that's happening, I want you to name it for yourself. Say, hey, wait, I'm shutting down. And then simply pay attention to what else is true for you in those moments. And I told her, it's important that you don't feel like you have to say or do anything differently with your husband. I just want you to pay attention to yourself enough when he's around so that you know what's actually going on inside you. And in one particular time that she did this, she said she realized that she was feeling annoyed that he'd kept his phone out on the dinner table while they were eating, because that sent my client the message that her husband thought that other people and other conversations were more important than her. And in this instance, my client got to decide if she wanted to address her feelings simply by soothing herself, like acknowledging that being hurt by her husband's phone being on the table makes sense, but that she knows deep down that he values her. And so she just needed to acknowledge that for herself. Or if this was something she wanted to speak up about, like saying to her husband, hey, wait, I don't feel good when you have your phone out while we're eating. Do you mind putting it in your office or turning it off? So that pause after you say, hey, wait, to yourself is the space you create within yourself for a universe in which your insides and your reality get to matter. It's where you choose you before automatically bending to someone else's world or to your old habits of making other people matter at your expense. Step 3. Actually say, hey, wait. And this is where the magic happens, my friends, because once you have noticed that you're having some kind of stress response that doesn't feel good, and you're about to react out of an old habit, and then you've given yourself permission to pause to figure out what's actually true for you so you can say something different. Step 3 is actually saying to someone else, hey, wait, followed by the word I, and a statement about what's true for you. So, hey, wait, I notice. Hey, wait, I feel. Hey, wait, I need. For example, you could say something like, hey, wait, I notice I want to say yes to your request because I know how important this is to you, but it's really stressing me out because it just doesn't work for me, and I'm sorry. But it doesn't have to be that complicated. You could literally say something as simple as, hey, wait, I'm confused. Or, hey, wait, I need a second. One of my favorite hey wait moments was when a client finally set a boundary with her mom in a really grounded and calm way. Because every time they talked on the phone, her mom would criticize her choices or tell her what she should have done instead. And one day, instead of absorbing it all in silence or picking a fight like she was a pissy teenager, my client said, "Hey, wait, I know you mean well, Mom, but I need you to trust that I'm making the best choices for me." And her mom backed off. Because when you change the energy behind how you communicate and the words you use, other people often respond differently. But this isn't about changing other people, though that might happen. Hey Wait is about giving yourself permission to exist in a world where your reality matters. And the two words "Hey Wait" are like the foundation of the language that's spoken in that world. You hear me? This is what I'm talking about. You not having to wait until the moments when you're by yourself to be kind to yourself and to feel at home in your own skin and to have your needs met. I mean, imagine what that would be like. I'm here to tell you it is totally possible. And I am going to support you in that because this is just the beginning. Every week on this podcast, I'm going to be here giving you more tools and scripts and science and strategies for shifting the way you communicate so you can have a better experience of yourself in the world. And I am going to be interviewing some really rad people about their own Hey Wait moments or their version of Hey Wait that they use with their clients. And I'm going to open it up for you to share the moments that trip you up so I can help you through them. In my next episode, which comes out in just a couple of days because I didn't want you to have to wait a whole week for the next one, I'm going to go deeper into that first step of using Hey Wait, which is noticing when you're having a bad experience of yourself. And I know that may sound obvious, but there's a little science behind it that I want to share with you and a specific and powerful tool that you can use to catch yourself more easily in those moments. So make sure that you subscribe to this podcast so you can get it the same day it comes out. And before I go, I have a couple announcements. First, I want to give a shout out to my buddy Dalton Grant. When it came time to coming up with the music for this podcast, I was wildly underwhelmed by the selections in the royalty-free space. Everything felt like a Live Your Best Life theme music, and I didn't dig it. So I reached out to Dalton, who is a brilliant musician and a kick-ass yoga teacher, and I asked him if he could make me some original music for the Hey Wait podcast. And I am so excited with what he came up with. He got just what I was looking for, and he made it happen. And since I'm a geek, I want to tell you that what I was hoping for in the music was that it would sound like the process of Hey Wait, like a heart beating and things all complicated and fast, and then there's a pause, like when you would say Hey Wait, and everything comes back more grounded and simpler, and then it ends on a positive note. And this is maybe a little bit like how explaining a joke makes the joke less funny, but hopefully explaining the intent behind the music helps you appreciate it and Dalton's talents even more. So thank you for making that possible for me, Dalton, especially when you had to translate what I was asking for, since I don't speak in the language of music at all. So I hope you all enjoy the music, and I hope you all enjoyed this first podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, I want you to do two things. First, take a Hey Wait moment for yourself today. Try one small shift in how you communicate and let me know how it goes. Leave a comment or DM me on Instagram. You can find me there at Hey Wait with Jay. And second, I'd love if you shared this episode with a friend or with someone you know who needs it, because Hey Wait isn't just about you learning how to be more real and connected and joyful in your life. It's also about us all contributing to a world in which everyone's reality gets to matter and we all get to be considered. And I know you know as much as I do how needed this is in our world right now. So thank you for spending this time with me today. And hey, wait, before you go, I want you to remember your reality matters and the right people will meet you there. So stay with yourself. I'll see you soon. Thanks so much for listening.